Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Ames.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hi there, this is Hank Bordowitz, and you are listening to the Break It Down Show with Pete and John.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
And if you're listening to me, well, you've really got to have a boring life.
God bless you.
Man, this was hard to do.
Well, it was, but it's going to be well worth it.
This was
Hank
trying, and I hope
Bordowitz has
it's worth
done
it.
literally everything in the music business, and he's written 131 books. Not really.
No,
9 books?
Not even a tenth. 10 books.
10 books.
10 books and a couple of second editions.
I see.
But you've been published in 10 different things, too, though.
100 different things, at least.
I've been published in 100 or so different things.
Right.
I tell you, right now, one of my big projects, and this has to do with the podcast, actually, is I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of cassettes and micro cassettes.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Well, what were those
Singles?
Sony mini discs?
Mini discs, the CD3s.
I don't have CD3s on, but I do have.
Do you have
mini
singles?
discs. I have some CD3s. I thought those were a genius idea.
Oh, yeah, it was a
actually.
great idea. Yeah.
I mean, how many musicians have more than 20 minutes of good music in them at any given time?
Not many.
Not many.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Todd Rundgren, Prince.
Yeah.
You know,
Todd Rundgren. He starts off with Todd Rundgren.
No, leading
Todd's
with
a buddy
Todd
of mine.
Rundgren.
Todd's an old friend.
I think
okay.
that a lot of listeners would have been, the obvious choice would be Prince because of just how prolific he was. But Todd Rundgren, a lot of people don't realize, just hits the record button and lives his life. And music comes pouring out of him.
It's an astounding thing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the day I met Todd, it was kind of funny because I was working on a book for someone else. I was like his research assistant, called Behind the Hits by Bob Shannon. His real name is Don Bombard, which is I think what he goes by these days. But back then he was Don Shannon, CBS FM in New York. If you're in New York, you know what CBS FM is, and the oldies station. And he was writing a book with someone else called Behind the Hits.
Huh.
And so one of the people I got, to do was Todd Rundgren, and I asked him to do it. And he grudgingly said yes. One of the things he told me is he wished more people had IRC because then he could do it that way, or he could screen people by putting an IRC questionnaire up, and if they answered a question wrong, he could say, "Nah, no thank you, I think I can pass on this one."
Huh.
He said, "We can only do this for 45 minutes because I have a very important appointment in 45 minutes." And he earned my everlasting respect because that very important appointment was to go bowling with his son Rex. The only person who earned respect that way otherwise was Bob Christgau from the Village Voice and Christgau's Consumer Guide, and I saw him on a panel at the New Music Seminar.
Yeah.
Dating myself here, but then again, I'm unmarried, so dating myself is a usual thing.
That's what I do. I relate to myself. I date myself.
I tell you, and you are the master of your own domain.
Yes, a lot.
And the master of your own Pornhub login. So,
there you go.
I want to also make sure, though, because you have dated yourself, which means that you started in the music business quite a while ago.
Sometime in the Paleolithic era, yeah.
Sometime around there. But I want our listeners to know that as of last year, that was the last time you published a book. And that book was called The Green Day FAQ.
The Green Day FAQ.
What's left to know about the most popular punk band in history?
Pop punk band.
Yes. But, that was very recent. So
that was
let's
March
not
finally came out. Yeah.
Pretend like you retired long ago and you haven't said anything
no, I can't
in a
retire.
long time. You continue.
I can't retire. I need to try making some semblance of a living.
Yeah.
Well, you also have a podcast called Noise of the World.
Yes.
What do you think about the medium?
I've liked podcasts for a while.
Okay.
And people kept telling me, you should do one. And finally, I'm kind of in a weird place work-wise, and I talked to my rabbi about it.
Yeah.
And he says, you've told me about all these tapes you have. Maybe you should turn them into a podcast. And I said, all right, already. I gave into the inevitable. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm only doing about once a month because as you know, these take
a lot
time
of
to
work.
put together. I mean, these sound simple,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of stuff involved. There's a lot of editing, and I do a video version of it, though I haven't done one for the 8th.
Right.
I just put up, before I left, because otherwise I wouldn't have had one in July, I put up an interview I did back in the Neolithic era with with Africa Bambaataa.
Oh, come on.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and that was cool. It's a short one, but it's a cool thing.
I just melted back in my chair.
Yeah.
And so that's the 8th one. I still have to do the video version of it, though, so that'll wait until I get back east.
We're 90 seconds deep, and he's been through Todd Rundgren, Prince, and Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah.
It gets better.
This is going to be fun.
And
so,
Robert, I can never say his name right.
Robert Christgau, I didn't finish that.
Yeah. I mean, like the music critic.
I
he's the
actually worked
standard.
once for him and occasionally for his sister Georgia when she was the editor at High Fidelity.
Huh.
And I wrote a lot of interviews, rather reviews for her. But Bob earned my, again, everlasting respect. And I'd known him for years before this, actually. At the New Music Seminar, he said, I can only stay for half the panel. I have a date with my daughter to go see Malatini and the Moatella Queens in Central Park. And I said, yeah, Rob, you know where your priorities lie.
yeah, everybody who's got a heart out for their kid does earn our respect.
That's why
I'm
here.
also considering converting and going to temple with you because you have a rabbi who knows what a podcast is.
Actually, my rabbi he was a temporary rabbi. He was an interim rabbi.
Okay.
And
Traveling rabbi?
yeah,
Road rabbi?
Is he ride on a horse? Have a big, huge hat?
No, that's
okay.
That doesn't have anything to do with Gene Wilder. You know, so.
I just like traveling ministers, preachers, that kind of character, just rides a horse, rides 30 miles, brings some spirituality, and then rides to the next town.
Basically, we lost a rabbi who we'd had for over 10 years, and this guy's brilliant, and we knew we couldn't keep him. We knew that he would, we have a big congregation, a very well-known, a prestigious congregation, but right in the city, I'm about 20 miles out of New York City, and Shalom City, right on First Avenue and 71st Street, made him an offer he couldn't refuse, which was 3 times as much money in an apartment with a river view, two-bedroom apartment with a river view.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have said no to that, even if it meant murdering. So,
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to you and you look capable. So anyway,
I am.
let's move this along.
I nearly did on the way here.
You know what else I wanted to talk to you about? Aside from your drive here, which, boy, you endured an arduous journey to get to here being Evergreen Garden in south of Market here in the city.
They're going to give us free lunch for that, right?
They should.
Very good.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's a good Vietnamese restaurant. Comes well recommended. If you get here, the basil chicken was pretty good.
That bowl you had,
Our vermicelli bowl was excellent.
Yeah.
It was tasty.
Looked super, didn't it?
And but anyway, the first impression that I got as I read through your biography was, holy cow, how does this guy do everything? You've been a sound engineer, you were a recording artist, you've been an A&R, you've been through the whole label system. It seems like you've been through the whole
And then you did the
promotion
publishing side,
system.
too.
I did some promotion.
Yeah.
I actually still do a bit of publicity, more the writing end of it than the selling. Mm-hmm. I'm a lousy salesman, which is why I've remained penuary. Excuse me. Is that how it's pronounced? Anyway,
That's
broke.
a nice word. I'm gonna adopt that word.
For most of my career.
I have to use the word at least 3 times in the next 48 hours to internalize it. We'll see if I make it.
Let me know.
But
Let me know how that goes.
of all the books that you've written that were biographical about artists, which one do you think took you the furthest, the furthest in depth?
I try and go in depth as I can with all of them. I know that the Creedence book hit some nerves.
It hit some nerves, and
Yeah.
that was Bad Moon Rising, the unauthorized biography of Creedence Clearwater Revival, and
John made me say unauthorized.
he made you say unauthorized.
Made me say unauthorized, or else John's a very litigious guy. In fact, he'll probably sue me for this. His brother, actually, who was his aide-de-camp, Bob, told me, John wants you to say it's unauthorized. He wants that to be in the title.
And is that because it hit nerves?
It was because he knew it would. There's a lot of nerves to hit in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he doing you a favor? Was he saying, hey, you know what? You know what would move some units is if we called it unauthorized?
No. I think he thought that if it was authorized, it would do better because that's kind of John.
Oh.
You also
Go ahead.
let's see. You also wrote a book about Billy Joel.
Yeah, that one.
And then he just recently is still talking about the breakup of his band. And
Is he talking about it?
No,
Because
the
the
band
band
is
sure is
talking
talking
banding.
about it.
no, he talked about it because he got asked specifically about Hired Gun.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And I thought he's selling him. He's not comfortable with his legacy, but on what I saw him say, So it's one of those things where he hasn't. I mean, someone's dead from that band in part
Yeah,
because they weren't able
Yeah,
to
Doug
stand-
Stagmeyer
Doug
killed
Stagmeyer,
himself.
yeah.
Killed himself.
and he didn't have the answers
May he
of
rest in
look,
peace.
we were like Stuart Copeland's great at this. We've had him on the show. He's like, yeah, we were dumb, and heck, Sting was probably right most of the time, but we weren't in a spot where we could agree on that. I don't hear that kind of conversation from Billy Joel. I hear a different conversation.
Billy Joel's Jewish. He has Jewish guilt. I mean, I know about this. Firsthand, I know about my Jewish guilt.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I attribute it to, is because Doug died, and Doug was a friend of his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he died because Billy cut him loose. And I got to imagine that if Billy cut them loose, he was probably thinking, well, they've been through this for 15 years. They can probably find a much better gig.
I don't think that's what he was thinking.
No?
But we can speculate about that, and we'd only be speculating. I think, probably what he was thinking was, I have an obligation to this music, and I think that I've done all that I can with this cast, and I need to find a new cast.
Well, I'm sure that that's part of it. But I'm sure in the back of his mind, he also said, but these guys shouldn't have any trouble finding work.
Yeah, you're okay. I'm with you on that. He had to, at some point, reconcile himself with the decision, and at that point, yeah. I mean, all of those guys. I mean, Liberty DeVito is a personal hero of mine, and he has been famous for many years.
Right.
Not as famous as Billy Joel, but certainly famous because of Billy Joel. Could he find some work? Probably. If I'm
didn't.
Billy Joel, I would have said, hey, you know what? It's time. Now, yeah, it was a struggle for all of them. I don't know what that adjustment is like, though.
Well, the other thing about that was they've been doing it since they were kids.
Right.
They've been doing it since they were very young men, and by the time they got out of it, they were in their late 30s, 40s.
40s, yeah.
And they were like,
So let's
now
imagine for a moment that you're in a position where you have been in a very successful job, never mind band.
Yeah.
But you landed that very successful job in the summer after your senior year of high school. And you got that job and you just did what you knew how to do, and lo and behold, you were good at it and you had some great success, and then that success was ended for you in your 40s. You don't know how to find a job. So part of that is, yeah, they could probably get a great gig if they had any idea how to go find a great gig.
that's probably true.
The freelance guys get good at playing the gig, but they also have to get good at finding the gig.
Yeah.
And they never figured that out.
And I know
They
that
never had
was
to.
a big problem for Lib.
Yeah. So, Lib, by the way, as of the publishing of this episode, has said yes, he's going to do the show, but he hasn't done it yet, and I probably haven't pushed
I
him
can't
hard
wait
enough.
to hear that.
Oh, it's so, yeah, we're super excited about
I cannot wait to hear that, because Lib is a funny, caustic guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before
High
that,
energy
before the
and
hire,
everything.
before the thing with Billy Joel, he was just caustic.
Sure.
He was
Well,
just
that was a
not
long
funny.
time
Now
ago
he's-
now, even. I mean, that's been a while. He's had a chance to work past that.
But he's also capitalizing on it.
Yeah. He's at a point now where he gets to capitalize on it. a little bit.
What is it? The Lords of 52nd Street,
Yeah.
which has all sorts of interesting connotations,
Yeah,
including for jazz
you're right.
players.
Yeah.
What stories fascinate you now at this point in your career? I mean, you've written 10 books, so it's got to be something that interests you that you write. But what are you thinking about doing?
I have a proposal on my computer that I am assiduously not writing about a book. I wanted to basically, it started off as, when I finish a book, I keep researching it. I keep gathering new research because I knew somewhere down the line there should be a second edition. That's what we're planning. So I spend a couple hours each week, just finding stuff and putting it into a file. And I did that for a book I did called Dirty Little Secrets of the Record Business, Why So Much Music You Hear Sucks, which sold disappointingly but got terrific reviews. It's used as a textbook.
That comes in handy, doesn't it?
It does. So I was thinking, okay, I'm starting a publishing company. We're going to talk about that, but it's still vaporware. But one of the things I want to do is a second edition of that because I got my rights back to it. And so I'm looking at the stuff for the second edition to get it ready for to get it ready to do. And I'm seeing, this is a different book.
Really? Okay.
This is a different book. This is a book about how the rules have changed over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I also have a thing, I'm an academic occasionally, and I have a lecture that I give, which is music and disruptive technology.
Okay.
And I'm saying, this is what I'm living through is music and disruptive technology. And one of the things about music is a technological force. Is music and pornography are always the bellwethers for
I'll say
technology.
Oh, it's true. They drive the need for space and speed and everything.
And, when Gutenberg wasn't printing Bibles, he was printing pornography. So,
of course.
Yeah.
So, and Gutenberg pornography in certain circles is way more valuable than Gutenberg Bibles per page on a per page basis. So, I want to do this book on the new rules, how disruptive technology has changed music over the years, with probably the last half of the book dealing with, and this is what's happening now.
And why it sucks.
I don't think it sucks. I'm a big fan of new technology.
Okay. Let's talk about how the tools have changed the artist and the art.
Okay.
So, naturally, we can go back to Les Paul and multi-track.
Les is an old buddy of mine.
And, oh, man.
I used to hang at his house.
he changed the world. So
I saw all that stuff. I played with it.
Once he did that, man, you totally threw me off because it's just the fact that you put your hands on the stuff that changed the world. I mean, it's like putting your hands on King Tut's shit.
Or like the right
but not
flyer.
King Tut's junk.
Right.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
It
No,
really
I mean,
has changed everything.
the little log and the headless wonder and the original octopus and, God, what would you call it? The octopus and I forget what you call the tower part of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was...
You were going to say about the things that have changed.
Yeah, so
he invented multi-track recording.
Allow the emergence of an artist like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and eventually Prince and these guys who would have been great band leaders and were great band leaders.
Yes.
But could go into a room all by their damn selves and make a record and complete it and emerge with a finished product that was so stamped. Because it's one thing when, Prince made great records when he brought other people on board. But there is something special about those first four albums where I think Lisa Coleman sang on one or two tracks at one point. But besides that, he made those records alone.
He did.
And they were special. And they made him special. So would those records have been different if he had brought in people? Well, he was probably enough of a taskmaster that they would have been pretty close.
They might have even benefited from collaboration.
You think so?
Well, again,
they would have made him different.
Another artist who did that was John Fogerty. And think about the Creedence records, and then think about records like Centerfield, Eye of the Zombie, Blue Ridge Rangers, which he did sitting in his little shed in his backyard, tearing up tapes that he didn't want to use.
Yeah. But he didn't bring in session players on Centerfield because...
No.
Well, he did it by himself.
All by his lonesome.
All right. So I'll listen to Centerfield differently now, though.
But it doesn't have the life of the Creedence Clearwater Revival records. And that's because he had other people's ideas and input into that.
Right.
We have definitely. So I don't know if you're aware, but we do a thing called an album fight. We take two albums track for track, smash them together, and like we did the Stevies, we did Stevie Ray Vaughan versus Stevie Wonder, and Stevie Wonder pretty much did all the work on Talking Book. But when he brought in Ray Parker Jr., when he brought in the other people, the music had a higher quality to it because there was someone to check his idea, to expand upon it. It's still Stevie's work, but it gets repetitive. And it's a great album, by the way. It was wonderful.
Oh.
But you could hear that extra bit of sunshine that shines on those songs where you do have someone else brilliant in the room with you. Not necessarily someone who can't hang, like a band member who's not that good. Like the Beach Boys would be a good example. Like, you've got to have someone else bring those ideas in. But we definitely have seen that as a norm.
Well, another project that I'm working on, and hopefully it will happen, I'm hoping it will happen within the end of this year, is in addition to all the tapes of interviews that I was talking about that during this, right? I have tapes. I was a recording artist for a hot minute in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And I
would like to have seen that and the haircut that associated with it. Anyway.
No, you wouldn't. I have all these demo tapes, and they've been just sitting around moldering, and nobody hears them except me. And I figured, what the hell? One of the great things about getting back to the thing we were talking about 2 minutes ago, this has been a far-ranging conversation, but it hasn't had a lot of lateral movement.
Yeah.
Ooh, didn't spill.
Good hands.
No, I'm not going to go there.
You know what? You slid under that thing like a veteran bassist.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a new bassist. I'm mostly a guitarist.
Okay.
But I play bass in the band I'm in now. So.
Yeah.
But I have all these things, and I'm saying, okay, I want to put them out. They're not doing me any good here. Maybe somebody will hear it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll even actually sell a couple and make a couple of bucks. God, what a concept that is. And so most of that stuff, though, I did pretty much on my own.
Yeah.
Most of the demos, when I recorded, I had the sense to get actual musicians on it. And actually one or two of the things I've recorded specially for the first project,
right,
which is, I think I'm going to call the band Buana Iguana. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I'm talking about this, actually.
Oh, we got the scoop.
Called the band Buana Iguana, and it's called Around the World at 100 baud.
At what now? Say it again?
At 100,000 baud.
Okay. Why'd you pick that name?
Because things go around the world at 100,000 baud, man.
All right.
That's what modems do now.
Okay, right.
So Around the World at 100,000 baud. And it's basically... I am an inveterate world beatnik, and I wrote the Cosmopolitan column in Jazz Is for about 15, 20 years because of that. But I also would record stuff like, I've given copies of this to Stu Cook and Doug Clifford, a version of Born on the Bayou on African instruments with the da-da-da-da-da-da part on a kalimba.
Wow.
And hand percussion.
John just played the air kalimba for everybody who can't see. The air kalimba.
And he did it well.
Could you play the air or something else for us, too, real quick?
Sure. I'm going to keep going and do so as inspired by this conversation with Hank.
It's the air flute. No, let's see. There's a bamboo flute on it. And just a bunch
air pan flute.
And there's just a bunch of African instruments, that I have.
Fear, it's your birthday.
And and so I sent that to Stu and Doug, and they were amused by it.
All right.
Stu Cook and Doug Clifford are bass player and drummer for the band.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For Creedence, and they were amused by it.
Yeah.
John, I don't think, has heard it. Or maybe he has. He has a way of hearing things.
He has a way of hearing
things.
To. I have a John Fogerty story that's kind of amusing.
Cool.
I used to be a cable man. It was my job right out of high school. I was a cable man at, Century Cable. And our district was San Pablo, Albany, and Kensington, California. Mm-hmm. And those areas, one of them is somewhat impoverished. It's the ghetto. And then the other two areas are very rarefied. Albany's pretty nice. Kensington is beautiful. And it is where most of the people who live up there are professors at Cal, professionals who are very established. Mm-hmm. And from time to time, we would have to do what we would call non-pays, which meant that we would go cut off somebody's cable because they had not paid their bill. Mm-hmm. And most of those happened in San Pablo because people in San Pablo didn't have any money. We rarely got non-pay disconnects in Albany and rarely got them in Kensington, and often because someone died. But one day I got a non-pay disconnect due in Kensington, California at a home of an individual named John Fogerty, which I was amused by because I thought, how many people out there are named John Fogerty? Mm-hmm. And I showed it to my friend Andre Scott, who was a mentor of mine and a technician at the time, but a mentor in many, many ways. How you doing, Andre? He looked at it. I said, hey, look, this is funny. I got a work order for a non-pay disconnect for a guy named John Fogerty. And he glanced over his shoulder at it, and he went, yeah, that's John Fogerty. And I went, hold on. Say what? And he goes, John Fogerty lives in Kensington. And I said, well, that makes sense because because of where it is. But this is John Fogerty? And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm disconnecting John Fogerty's cable bill because he didn't pay it? And he said, yeah.
When was this?
We do that all the time. You do that all the time? Evidently, he didn't have somebody watching his stuff when he went on the road. So he'd go on the road, and he'd be gone for 4, 6, 8 months, whatever. And the third month he was gone, we'd notice that his cable bill hadn't been paid, and we'd send somebody up to go cut it off. And then he'd get back from the road, and he'd go, hey guys, you guys cut my cable off. And we'd go, okay, we'll be right up. And we'd go up, and we'd reconnect, and everything would be fine. But I was a new guy, and I got this work order to disconnect John Fogerty's cable, and it blew my mind. I thought, this is how rock stars live? They get their cable cut off?
When was this?
1987.
Okay, so he was actually... That was when he was between being a rock star.
Yeah.
And those were very tough times for John.
Well, he was still doing road gigs, though. And he did still live in Kensington. So I don't know how tough, relatively speaking, probably tough.
A lot of the road gigs he was doing back then were, mostly... He did a lot of benefit concerts for the veterans back then.
Yeah.
Which was commendable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But he was only starting to play back live again.
Yeah.
He hadn't played live pretty much since Creedence before that.
Yeah.
Because I saw that tour. That was the Eye of the Zombie tour, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time he'd played live. And it's an interesting thing about John, because I've seen him play a dozen times. And the first time I saw him, which was that tour, and he looked like if he smiled any harder, his face would crack and reveal the mask.
Yeah.
And I felt that way to a lesser extent every time I saw him play. I saw the Blue Ridge Rangers tour, and he had his kids up there, and he had a great band behind him, and he looked like he was actually, for the first time, having fun again.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
For the first time, having fun again. And that was a good thing to see. I was very happy to see that.
Now, I don't know which tour it was, but we just last week were at J.R. Robinson's house. And he said that he had gone on the road in those years, and might have been on that tour, with John Fogerty. And at some point, he, had broken away from what he was doing in Los Angeles, a lot of studio work, and he decided to go on the road, and John Fogerty wanted to take him, so he went, and the condition of that tour was they were not able to play any Creedence tunes. So here he was thinking, I know all these tunes. I grew up with these tunes. I internalized all of them, so I probably know 3/4 of the set already. And they go on the road and they can't play a single.
See, I was surprised that he didn't at least play stuff like Cotton Fields and the Midnight Special, and that stuff. But I guess thinking about copyright, the arrangements were belonged to Saul Zaentz.
Yeah,
and he was not going to do anything to benefit Saul Zaentz.
Yeah.
So he plays it live. That's a performance royalty, and ka-ching, Saul Zaentz gets that. Of course, half of that goes to John, and that was probably the only money he was making because he wasn't getting any mechanical royalties, because that's a whole other story. But he didn't accept checks from Fantasy, so and the performance royalties came from, I believe, he was BMI. No, he was ASCAP back then.
Yeah,
John Doerr was ASCAP, and so he wasn't. That was the only money he was getting.
Wow.
Where his half, the performance royalties that his songs made was stuff he was getting. And
but he didn't want to benefit Saul Zaentz.
He would do nothing to benefit Saul Zaentz.
Boy, that is a principled individual. It's one way to look at it.
It's interesting because back in the day, John was fatherless. His dad split when I guess he was about 4 or 5 years old when his brother Bob was born. And maybe a little older. But, he grew up, a lot of his growing up was done without a father. And Saul Zaentz became a father figure in his life, whether he was aware of it or not.
Right.
And...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hank's making a face.
That's tough.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I think you could hear
couldn't
the
hear
face.
that
No,
face?
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That's pretty
for,
deep.
for those who don't know the story, Saul
Did John
Zaentz,
ever figure out how to rebel and get past all that? I mean, it seems like
I don't know. I honestly, as the things that I know about, I'm willing to admit the things that I don't know about.
Sure.
And I'd love to talk to John about that. He doesn't talk about it.
right.
But John's never talked to me. Mm-hmm. I've talked to him via Bob occasionally.
Yeah.
And
you've
most of the
talked to
stuff
everybody else.
Most of the stuff in the books, John's willing to talk to a lot of people, but nobody seems to be willing to ask that kind of a question of him.
Right.
Sure.
Or if they are, he's not going to answer
Is
it.
he capable of answering that kind of question, though? I mean, it's one thing to hide from it, but maybe he just can't.
I don't know.
Well, it also is that I think everybody else is capable of understanding that they might get cut off if they ask that kind of question.
I'll tell you a story, something like this. When he did his second comeback tour, when he did the Blue Moon Swamp tour, was sponsored partially by VH1. My friend Bill Flanagan.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill. You know Bill?
Oh, sure. Everybody knows Flanny. Come
Yeah,
on.
Flanagan the rabbi.
That
No.
guy, yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
Bill Flanagan, who's now, I've seen him on 60 Minutes for crying out loud.
Wow.
CBS This Morning. But he was vice president of VH1 at the time. I knew him since he was like the editor-in-chief of Musician. And in fact, I got to tell Bill, if he's not aware of it, because I don't think he's living on the East Coast anymore, that Karaoke Cabana shut down. No more cheap lunches. And I'll say about that later.
yeah.
They were sponsoring this thing, and I run into him, and I walk into the Hammerstein Ballroom, Manhattan, run by the Moonies. I run into Bill Flanagan. He's saying, "Hey, Hank, great to see you, man. Let me take you upstairs to meet John." And this is when I'm still working on the book at this point. And I said, "Probably, as much as I'd like to, Bill,
Yeah.
I want you to keep your job."
Yeah.
And he says, "What do you mean?" And I explained the situation to him, and he said, "Oh, okay, thank you for that."
Yeah.
Because his behavior was still variable there,
Yeah.
and I didn't want him to go off on Bill.
Right. It could have been directed in any direction.
As much as I would have loved to have met him.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Bob was up there too. And I would have really enjoyed meeting Bob because I've been talking to him a lot.
Well, what is Bill Flanagan doing now that he's on all the shows?
He's being an expert.
Oh, okay.
Being an expert.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in being an expert if you can pull it off.
I wanted to take us back to that book about music sucking.
Music sucking, yes. Dirty little secrets
How
of the
do
record
you?
business.
What's the slug line? How do you capture what the lesson is from that? Because one of the reasons why we do our album fight thing is trying to figure out what greatness is, like where the bar is, right? Like anything above this is good, but there is a lot of stuff, and not just pop music, or whatever. But there's a lot of weakness in country as a genre, but it's so popular.
Well, there's I think it's Spinrad's law, which is that 90% of all science fiction sucks.
Right.
To which there's Ellison's law, which says 90% of everything sucks. Ellison
I could agree with Ellison.
Harlan Ellison was a bit more cynical than Norman.
Yeah.
Both of them gone. And
God rest them both.
yeah. And this book is not so much about the artistry end of it.
Okay.
This is about how the business killed off a lot of the balls of popular music. And it has, people ask me this all the time. Whatever happened to good music?
Can you give us the broad stroke of how that happened?
Oh, Lord, that's 300 pages. Broad strokes.
I'd like
Things
it in
like
11 words or less. No,
11 words or less. Let's put it in a fortune cookie.
Yeah.
Radio
Yeah.
became automated.
Right. Okay.
So you didn't have things like...
There's nobody breaking records anymore. There's nobody with a personality who you can count on to spin you into Sunday
There's nobody.
at midnight where you know he's going to. I had a DJ at KPFA save
Yes.
my life. I swear to God. That's gone.
Yeah. That's a big thing. The art of programming is no longer creative.
Yeah.
Except
They've taken
maybe
all
in
the
college
artistry
radio.
out of it, and they've made it a Xerox copier.
They've made, and in fact, that's quite. I mean, because a lot of the things are programmed in an office somewhere in New York, LA, or Nashville,
Right.
Yeah.
and they go across the country.
Yeah. So
And
it's a Xerox machine just spitting out.
the same music's being
spitting
played
out Patrick
in Peoria
Nagels.
as in being played in Pittsburgh, as in being played in Pomona.
Yeah.
Right.
John and I were in the desert in California, and there was the Pirates radio station that Alice Cooper had broken into. And the guy we were hanging out with, God bless, but he really believes that Alice Cooper's holed up in his shack, waiting for the law to. Remember this thing?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. You're like, he doesn't leave his house in Arizona. He sits in front of a microphone, does some voiceover, like 20 minutes of voiceover.
Yeah,
And
and
I
turns
just
it
saw him
over.
on- I just saw him on TV though.
yeah. Was he in his shed? Waiting for the cops?
With a snake, yeah. What's all with all the black? It's a great commercial. I don't know what it's for, which means it's a lousy commercial for what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But it's a great commercial in terms of Alice being very funny.
Sure.
Right.
And Alice is awesome. And it's not a dig on Alice, but it is the guy that digs that is above 50 years old. Nobody younger than that
buys
it or
Yeah.
cares that Alice
Or
Cooper
cares.
is-
That's
yeah.
the thing, is that we love it, but we don't care.
Well,
We
Yeah.
know
There's
Alice.
no Wolfman Jack anymore.
No.
Like,
In my adventures here,
Yeah.
though, while I was doing that nasty road with the reticulated buses, I was listening to a station. I don't know where it was from. I don't know what it was. I don't even remember the frequency. All Bowie all the time. I was listening to about an hour worth of David Bowie music.
Awesome.
So that was like, what is this? All the Madmen.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
stuff that was not things that usually played on the radio. I mean, I used to play that in college radio, but
Yeah. That's terrific. I love that.
so I don't know what that was. It may have been hallucinating it just because of all the anxiety, but
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing.
I once got up at 4 in the morning to be on a 6 a.m. flight so I could be in Santa Monica to do an 8 a.m. voiceover. And I did that, and I was done with that by 10:30. And then I went to my cousin's house, and we hung out and swam in his pool, and we had a barbecue. And then we left that night, and we drove up here with my cousin and his family. We had a great time. But he deposited me back at my car at the Oakland airport at 1:45 a.m. So I had been up since 3, and now I'm at my car at 1:45. I've got a 40-minute drive to my house, and I was sleepy. And I got in my car, and I rolled the window down immediately, and I started chewing some gum, and I hadn't left a parking lot yet. And I pulled out of the Oakland airport, and I started pushing the button to go around the radio station, and I landed on KPFA, and there was a guy doing a show called The Renegades of Funk in the middle of the night, and he played me all the way home Cameo.
Yeah.
And he rocked my fucking head off and funked me back to my house and kept me alive.
I got to tell John about that. He'll love that.
I got all the way home. I pull onto my street, and at the time he was playing Freaky Dancer, which was just beginning, and it was on Knights of the Sound Table, which is the first album I bought with my own money. I had to keep driving around the block until the song finished.
Don't you just love that?
Yeah. Nobody's doing that anymore.
It's funny because I'm basing on his last name, of course, because I'm kind of being sleep deprived myself. But one of the guys who was in Cameos now, an attorney who's the head of the music business program up at Berkeley.
Oh, man. Really?
And I'm in touch with him occasionally. He's a colleague. John Kellogg, that's it.
Okay.
And I got to tell him that story. I got to
Please
email him that story.
You know what? Let me do this. Let me write it down, and I'll email it to you. And if you would be so
I'll
kind
forward
as to
it to
forward
John.
it, I would.
Not a problem.
I would feel fulfilled. I hope that hope he enjoys it as much as I enjoyed that drive home.
He would love that story.
You've got more than
man.
one story. Music saved my life driving home, too.
Yeah. I mean, come on. But
that's
that was
everyone
back
knew.
when there
Everyone of
were-
our generation, I assume you're not too much younger than I am.
Yeah.
Everyone of our generation has a story like that. I mean, if
Look
it weren't
at Pete.
For, if
Take
it
a
weren't
good
for,
look at Pete. He's clearly got 15 years on you.
If it wasn't doubtful, highly doubtful. If it weren't for Quadrophenia, I probably wouldn't have made it through the 8th grade.
Oh, see?
Sure.
Uh-huh.
You know, I would blast the Real Me, for the ultimate anthem of teenage alienation, and I still love the song, which just goes to show you my level of arrested development.
And you left your teens a little while ago.
A little.
Yeah.
Considerably.
But
So-
you never left music, though.
Never left music.
When did you know you were
Actually-
going to... Yeah,
I tried.
sure.
I tried, and it
Yeah.
always sucked me back in. It always sucked me back in.
But how... Okay, so when did you go, I have to do this. I have to make a living in this. I don't have a choice.
About the time I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
About the time
8th
Quadrophenia
grade.
Yeah.
happened, and I was playing in bands, and I was in a band where we had a bass player who was actually good enough to play the Real Me, which, if you've heard the song, you know anything about playing the instruments.
Yeah.
It's a challenging bass
John
part.
Entwistle doing his thing.
It's John Entwistle's like tour de force.
Yeah.
In fact, it's the song every bass player wants to learn how to play, because they know if they can play that, they can play anything, pretty nearly anything that comes down the pike.
We're
Except
rounding third base
investing
pretty
it.
hard here, but I want to ask this question because you've been around the music business and seen so many cycles, and you have a character arc within the story of popular music that is substantial. Who today, as a young contemporary artist, are you paying any attention to?
There were a bunch of them. There's a band actually not far from here called The Regrets
Yeah.
that are killers. 3 women and a guy. And the lead singer is just something special.
The Regrets.
The Regrets.
Okay.
I love them to death. Who else? I hate this because I always know I'm going to get that question, and I never have the answer ready. So the Regrets is just forefront of my mind because they're just so good and so talented
All right.
and such good songwriters.
That's a good one.
Who's your answer?
I like Logic a lot right now.
Okay.
But I want to end on the Regrets because we're talking about, your substantial tour around the entire industry of music, bringing you to this band that happens to be here in San Francisco. And I want our listeners to go look up the Regrets. I'm going to look them up with you.
Yeah.
We're going to learn. We're going to learn about them together. And I think that that is a great recommendation.
And their first album came out on Warner, and it was spectacular. And there's a song called, I think it's called Seashore, and it's a great song.
Okay.
And I think it sold dozens.
Well, let's see if we can. Let's see if we can find it, buy it, patronize the Regrets.
Yeah.
They are something special. They are.
That's good enough for me. I like something special.
Yeah.
Like if someone said there's an unknown flavor of ice cream for you, it's special, I'm going to eat it.
Yep.
I'm also going to eat the shitty coffee flavor you got, too.
He's going to eat it without asking what it is. He doesn't care. It's special.
Yeah.
So we're going to go just as blindly on your recommendation.
Please do. Let me know
into the
let me know what
Regrets.
you think of
We will.
it.
And
Play
thank you.
it on the way out of the show.
Yeah, well, let's do that.
And we definitely need to have you back and do some more of this because we're so short on time because of your odyssey to get here. But you have drawn the bow and shot the arrow through all of the eyes of the needle. It's no doubt it's you. And we love that. And also do an album fight with us because you'll love the exercise. It's so you get to hear the music in such a different way because you really sit there and you're like, I'm going to pick nits. You have to pick nits.
Well, you're a drummer, right?
Yep.
And you too.
I'm a yacker. I talk. I play the harmonica a little bit.
Okay, because I know another person who does the show also plays the drums. I thought there were 2 of
We
you.
have a lot of drummers on.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of drummers, a lot of bass players.
I love the Marotta show. That was terrific.
Oh, yeah.
And also Gilson Lavis.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you so much, man.
Gilson-
Gilson,
that.
I interviewed Gilson twice. I've interviewed Squeeze. There are
What
a
a
bunch of Squeeze
beautiful
tapes
guy.
in those boxes. And I interviewed him once when he was weighing about 250 pounds.
Yeah.
And Gilson's big guy's about 6'3".
Yeah.
And I interviewed him a few years later. He'd gone into Squeeze, he'd left Squeeze, and now he was back in Squeeze. And I interviewed him then, and he was
And he
like
got
maybe
back into
180.
fighting shape.
He was about 180 pounds. And I said,
1 minute.
Gilson, you're like half the man you were last time we talked. He says, yeah, that was about 89 pounds of vodka.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
As a drummer, if you're still fat, you drink a lot.
Yeah.
remember Frosty?
I think
No.
Drummer for not Blackfoot. Motown, White Motown band. Spacing. On their
That's the guy you got to ask.
White
right
Motown band.
White Motown, Get Ready. They did a version to Get
Oh,
Ready that was
oh,
a rock
Rare
hit.
Earth.
Rare Earth.
Yeah.
Their drummer was a guy named Frosty.
Uh-huh.
And Frosty had to weigh 300 pounds if he weighed an ounce.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, then we got to give a shout out to Michael Bland because he's a big guy. To the late great Larry London, who's my favorite big guy on the drums.
There are a few.
There are a few. Anyway, Hank Bordowitz, everybody. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank
man.
you. It was a lot of fun.